still go back 10 years, so, it's another day.
I'll let you all have just a little more conversation and then we're done.
Right.
Hammer was a big dog, man. He got respect in the streets. He came from a respected crew, and they handled business, him and his brother Lewis and the crew.
MC Hammer was there. That approached me. He was like, Red, I'm gonna tell you something, you young, but I don't allow nobody talking about my mama. You understand me? I said, yes, sir.
And then, Pete said the line that really pissed Hammer off about, Cactus turned Hammer's mother out. And that was the one that really took Hammer over the edge.
So he tried to let me know. We sat down. He was like, yo, don't get it. I'm a real gangster from Oakland. I was like, yo, Hammer, you ain't got to do this to me.
Anyone who grew up and listened to hip-hop in the early 90s will tell you that Suge Knight was among the most feared men in the business. The 6'4", almost 200-pound beast of a man also acquired a reputation as a dangerous and physically imposing guy. But have you heard what he said about MC Hammer?
Everybody talking bullshit, but you fit death row because you wear the right jewelry. You love cars like us.
That's right.
You like to work hard.
That's right.
As you see, you riding with Oakland. You going to Oakland.
Hard Oak Town.
And we got over here.
Well, from the lips of Knight himself, Hammer was probably the most dangerous man in the game at the time, and that pretty much explains why they got along well. After all, Knight was a certified bully, and to be close to him as Hammer did definitely means they were cut from the same cloth. But just how bad was Hammer, and how come he kept this side of him on the low? We are about to find out. Getting to understand Suge Knight explaining how dangerous MC Hammer was just needs this one tweet from one unlikely source. As Hammer rose to fame, rappers dissed him because of his appearance and music. What they didn't know was that he was arguably one of the most dangerous artists in the industry. Hammer had strong ties in his hometown of Oakland, California. He had family and friends who were heavy in the streets, and he took care of them as his wealth grew. MC Hammer mentioned LL's name in his song Let's Get It Started in 1987. LL responded in 1990 on his track To the Break of Dawn. Guess what happened next? Hammer's people pulled up on LL Cool J after one of his shows, and after an argument, LL got punched. Later, LL and Hammer hashed out their issues and got back cool. Today, despite the internet being free and history providing all the necessary lessons, millennial and Gen Z hip-hop fans still find ways to question the credentials of certified OGs. One such person is getting a grand lesson that Hammer, yes, MC Hammer, was about that action in those streets despite his dance-friendly music and image.
Can't touch this.
Anthony Duckett of Houston's Apollo Media team posted a tweet that featured an image of Hammer standing alongside Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg, and the late Tupac Shakur. The tweet caption reads, "I don't think I've ever seen anyone more out of place than Hammer was in this photo lol," prompting a flurry of, actually responses from those who know the real G Hammer actually was. Duckett bravely left the tweet up to live and be dissected by all sorts of folks. And he even questioned why folks were angry with him. Just to be clear, the fans said they weren't angry with the brother, that they were just reporting the facts. However, Twitter is sharing all the facts about Hammer's infamous hood ties at will, including videos from his Oakland peers such as Too Short and Redman, who said he was made to apologize to Hammer after dissing the rapper's mother.
MC Hammer was there. That approached me. He was like, Red, I'm gonna tell you something, you young, but I don't allow nobody talking about my mama. You understand me? I said, yes, sir.
As many people noted after perusing the image Duckett posted, there was a universal agreement that Hammer may have been the most dangerous man in the flick. These days, the legendary rapper is mellow and basking in the glow of his weighty chart accomplishments and fairly recent commercial placements. That said, there was a time when Hammer wasn't about the fun and games if he felt his name was disrespected. Replying to Duckett's tweet about Hammer being out of place in the company of Knight and Pac, one fan wrote, "You think Hammer looks out of place because you don't realize he's actually the most dangerous man in this photo?" Another added, "Obviously you haven't heard. Hammer a real one and the wrong one to try." A third fan questioned, "Hammer is the most gangsta person in that picture. If you think MC Hammer was so soft, why didn't anyone diss him during the gangsta rap era?" Apart from LL pulling one on Hammer and later regretting his move, Third Bass dissed MC Hammer and mentioned his mother in their song The Cactus. Hammer took the insult seriously, and as Third Bass traveled to Los Angeles, Hammer's brother allegedly phoned Def Jam and told them the group would die as soon as they got to Los Angeles. A $50,000 bounty was put on Third Bass, and MC Search was the special target. Eric B. confirmed the hit to MC Search. The Rollin' 60s were hired for the job. Our guy was that dangerous, and Suge Knight knows best. Russell Simmons asked Barefoot Pookie to protect third base while they were in Los Angeles. MC Search was at the mall with his girl, and while signing autographs, he was approached by some Crips that were there. Pookie stopped them from harming Search. MC Search went on the radio the following day and called MC Hammer a B. Moments later, the Rollin' 60s called the station and said Search was going to die.
And then, Pete said the line that really pissed Hammer off about, Cactus turned Hammer's mother out. And that was the one that really took Hammer over the edge.
Search and the rest of third base left the station and were followed by the Rollin' 60s, who began pointing their weapons, ready to shoot. MC Search had to do 25 years worth of therapy to get over the situation, and MC Hammer refuted Search's claims. And that's not even the most gangster move Hammer ever pulled on a fellow rapper. Back in the day, Ice Cube released the video to True to the Game, which featured symbolism of a rapper selling out and crossing over into pop culture. The video was perceived as a diss towards Hammer.
It's the brother you love to hate with a new song. So what really goes on? Nothing but a come up. But ain't that a trip? They hate to see a young brother rich.
As the story goes, MC Hammer was chilling at a hotel one day, with the person on the phone informing him that Cube was at a Roscoe's in Hollywood. The rapper caught Cube leaving the establishment and questioned him about the video. Hammer told Cube to never let that happen again, and Cube said, "No, sir, that won't happen again." Yes, you heard that right. A whole Ice Cube, the man with enough guts to F the police, gave in to Hammer's threats.
Cube was like, Hammer, man, hey man, it's just a video, bro. I mean, I don't really mean it like that, man. Hammer like, yo, man, that ain't cool, bro.
Next up is Redman. Redman dissed MC Hammer on his debut album, and as you would expect, the Hammer went looking for Redman. Hammer caught up with Redman when Red and EPMD came to Oakland. They saw each other, and Hammer told him, "Red, I'm going to tell you something, you young, but I don't allow nobody to talk about my mama." And just like Ice Cube, Red responded and said, "Yes, sir, it was also around this time that Hammer and Suge Knight got close." Hammer signed with Death Row in 1995 after Knight reached out to him the year before. Hammer left the label after Tupac's death. Hammer was one of the only people Suge never tested in the industry out of fear. So, the whole misconception about Hammer being a softie is simply a myth. Even today, despite being more or less retired, the once prolific rapper is still respected for his work in the music industry. If someone uses the phrase "can't touch this" to emphasize their position on business, they owe a piece of their clapback vocabulary to the legendary MC. At his peak, Hammer was more than just a rapper. He was a cultural phenomenon. The Oakland native burst onto the scene in the 80s and 90s with his high-energy performances and flashy style. He belted hits like "Too Legit, Too Quit," "You Can't Touch This," and "Adam's Groove." And those songs became anthems of a generation. His unique fashion sense, such as the balloon hammer pants, set trends.
The Grammy goes to "You Can't Touch This," MC Hammer.
In 1991, Hammer won 3 Grammys for the previous year's work: Best Rap Solo Performance, Best R&B Song, and Best Music Video Long Form. During this era, the rapper appeared in movies and television shows, was sought out to perform on late-night talk shows, and inspired fashion trends. At the height of his career, the rapper reportedly made nearly $70 million. During this time, he lived lavishly, acquiring almost 20 luxury cars, 21 racehorses, a private jet, and a helicopter. Although it cost him $12 million to purchase his Fremont, California home, he invested more than $30 million in improvements on the mansion, which featured gold toilets and gold-plated front gates inscribed with Hammer Time to welcome guests.
But what happened in that time where, you were losing your way?
Loyalty.
Because there were 2 chain of thoughts for me. One is that it's not like you don't really know. It wasn't no secret. Like, everybody knew that I had 200 employees.
The 40,000 square foot property also included a bowling alley, a 17-car garage, tennis courts, 2 swimming pools, and a recording studio. Additionally, Hammer employed a staff of 200 people, costing him between $500,000 and $1 million per month. By 1996, his excessive spending would land him in bankruptcy. Hammer had more than $10 million in debt and only $1 million in assets. Despite this drastic change in fortune, he has no regrets about how everything happened.
If you wanted to now say the story is MC Hammer just pissed his money off when you knew that I was employing 200 people for my community, it said more about you than it did about me.
Some people ask me sometimes, would I go back and change things? MC Hammer said it was per an Oprah.com profile. They are flabbergasted by my answer. My real true answer is I wouldn't change one thing. I really believe in the butterfly effect, meaning that if I change one thing, everything else changes. I lose the kids I have now. I lose the relationships I have now. I lose the peace I have now. So I'm very happy with my decision. While many choose to remember him only for his hit songs and economic downfall, that is only a part of the now 62-year-old story. Today, the father of 5 is an accomplished entrepreneur, faith leader, and tech investor.
I went to one tech conference and everybody kept talking about MC Hammer. And I was just like, why does everybody keep talking about MC Hammer?
According to the Oprah.com profile, Hammer's interest in technology began when he was making music videos in the 1990s. He saw the potential for music videos to be shared on the internet. However, this presented challenges as the technological infrastructure was not yet ready for this. The rapper remained committed to his vision and continued to explore ways to share his music videos, eventually witnessing the rise of platforms like YouTube. So I stuck with it all the way from '94 to YouTube, he said. If you look on YouTube, you'll see me there when their offices were on top of a pizza parlor and only had 3 or 4 computers. That kicked off his tech investing career. He now works with companies that intersect technology, music, and marketing in Silicon Valley. His investment portfolio includes companies like Bump Technologies, Square, and X, when the social media platform was known as Twitter. On a day-to-day basis, I'm loosely involved with about 8 technology companies that I'm excited about, Hammer said in the Oprah profile. Everything from advising to consulting to investing in, it keeps me busy 10 to 12 hours a day. Hammer's most recognizable tech investment is in X, formerly known as Twitter. A separate Afrotech report revealed in 2020 that former rapper Chamillionaire had talked with MC Hammer at a tech conference and shared that the Hammer owned a piece of Twitter.
He was plugged in with a bunch of tech companies, you know what I'm saying? He has his
MC
friend,
Hammer.
MC Hammer.
Wow.
He got a friend named Ron Conway who's like a billionaire.
His investment strategy has cemented him in the Oakland community as an OG of sorts by leveraging his failures and triumphs as tangible experience and necessary wisdom. Anybody in the Valley who invests around the commodity of music on the digital side, they know how to reach out to me, Hammer revealed. It's a very, very small community up here. I'm usually just a text away. The Dance Jam co-founder is being intentional about where his money goes these days. Hammer's investment approach isn't haphazard. He approaches each idea with strategy and insight for large-scale impact, instilling confidence in his business acumen, unlike in the past. I'm interested in companies that can have a global impact on enterprise in general. Things that can make your connected life more interesting and easier, he said via Billboard. But always, I look for opportunities to support and expand the music business model or reinvigorate the music business model. And now, back to the big question, Suge Knight and Hammer connection. A good chunk of hip-hop lovers doesn't seem to recall the 2 most dangerous men in hip-hop back in time ever working together, but they sure did. Knight owned Death Row Records in the mid-90s was a powerhouse that no one wanted to reckon with. There were expansion plans. The establishment of a Death Row East with Eric B. as the president and a roster consisting of the likes of Big Daddy Kane, Wu-Tang Clan, Run DMC, Cool G Rap, Craig Mack, and others. With Dr. Dre leaving the label and Tupac passing away, it never came to fruition, and the label fell apart. However, there were some notable artists that had been on the label in passing and recorded material that would see the light of day thanks to the internet. Recently, Bow Wow conducted an interview on The Breakfast Club and discussed Snoop discovering him and bringing him to the label. He was considered an affiliate of Daz and Kurup's group, Thaw Dog Pound. A few tracks have been floating around since his early days. However, it was MC Hammer that had recorded a full project while on the label that was never officially released. Hammer had forged a relationship with Knight since the late 80s. He went quite in depth into his relationship with the label boss and Tupac with hip-hop journalist Davey D back in 1997, shortly after he departed from Death Row.
We sat down and we mapped out a game plan, and Tupac actually was writing the blueprint down of what me and him was going to do together.
When they initially crossed paths, Hammer was making the rounds promoting his album Let's Get It Started, and Knight was a bodyguard for Bobby Brown at the height of his career. Over the next few years, Hammer would go on to become one of the largest music stars in the industry, releasing several multi-platinum projects consecutively on Capitol Records. On his part, Knight would build up his music business acumen, having a publishing company, and then eventually establishing Death Row Records with artist and producer extraordinaire Dr. Dort Death Row. Records had become such a tour de force in the hip-hop music industry, shifting the paradigm to a harder, more aggressive sound that was coined as gangster rap. Prominent artists like Heavy D and LL Cool J adopted the more aggressive sound to stay relevant in the marketplace. The highest profile artist, though, to change the landscape was Hammer. He went on to release the album The Funky Headhunter in 1994. One of the tracks, Sleeping on the Master Plan, was featured and produced by Death Row duo The Dog Pound, consisting of Kurupt and Daz Dillinger. The album went platinum. Hammer released the project Inside Out the following year. The album did not connect with the marketplace, and the rapper was dropped by the record label Giant Records. That is when Knight reached out to Hammer and joined Death Row Records.
We're gonna do a video in a couple of weeks, man. You know, we're gonna hook it up. Hook it up. Let's see what we're gonna get ready to do for the movie though.
Hammer described how he struck a true, genuine friendship with Tupac once he joined the label. Right from the get-go, Tupac was very hands-on in putting together reference tracks that would ultimately lead to being on Hammer's project, Too Tight. This includes the title tracks Too Tight and Unconditional Love. He would also provide his vocals for the track Too Late Playa, accompanied by the legendary Big Daddy Kane. In a radio interview Hammer conducted with Bay Area legend Davey D in 2006, he expounded more on how welcoming Tupac was with Hammer, as well as his plans with him to set up initiatives to help out the youth and the community. Other notable tracks that were associated with the project were Get Up, which was rumored as a diss to Rival at the time Too Short, and the Posse cut Can You Feel It, which consisted of a who's who of prominent West Coast artists, including Kurupt, Macmall, and Knumskull from the Lunas. During his time on Death Row, Hammer did also manage to make an appearance on the group OFTB's album The Lost DR Files. The track was called So Long and was an ode to the dearly departed. If Tupac had not passed and Death Row Records had not crumbled, Hammer would have been able to continue being a platinum artist at the very least. He had Tupac coaching him on his cadence and flow. He had unlimited access to Death Row's top-notch producers and artists, as well as prominent West Coast artists from other record labels. So, Suge Knight knows Hammer more than anybody else. As for Knight, he has been a well-known troublemaker for at least 3 decades. Even if you're entirely unfamiliar with gangsta rap, chances are you've still heard of Marion Suge Knight, the infamous founder of Death Row Records. With a huge personality and a hulking frame to back it up, Knight literally took the rap game by force in the early 90s, allegedly using intimidation and violence to silence his rivals and build an empire that has been compared to Motown. His controversial tactics worked, and many of the artists on his roster, including Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur, were catapulted to stardom. But crime hasn't always paid for Knight, as his colorful criminal record proves. He's been in and out of prison over the years, and in 2006, a federal judge ordered Death Row be taken over by a bankruptcy trust, citing gross mismanagement by its founder. Knight is currently facing charges that could put him away for the rest of his life, but his latest scandals are just the tip of the iceberg. In August 2001, Knight was an inmate at California's Mule Creek Maximum Security Prison, so this is where The Guardian met him for what would become a very candid interview. The disgraced music mogul was nearing the end of a 5-year stretch for an assault he was involved in on the night Shakur was, and he was in a reflective mood. The big man claimed his bad reputation was undeserved. If I was 5'7" and 150 pounds, they'd be calling me a genius, he said. But 'cause I'm 6'3" and over 300 pounds, they call me the most dangerous man in the record industry. Knight did admit that he had a violent past that started when he was in his teens. He told the British newspaper that he and his friends used to catch a bus to the affluent Hollywood Hills area and wait outside the schools for the wealthy students. The kids would come out and I'd grab them, turn them upside down, and shake out their money, he said. They were easy pickings. A few years later, I was stealing their bikes. No one ever said anything. Why would they? Man, those white MFs were running scared of black guys like me. They thought we were some kind of wild animals. But come to think of it, he was actually a wild animal, as told in The Legend of Knight and Vanilla Ice, a rap music lore, a tale that may or may not have been embellished over the years, depending on whose version of events you believe.
Until Suge said he'd like to talk to me on the balcony, alone. And I said, oh, okay, it's fine with me. My bodyguard stood up and he got slapped down.
It all supposedly started with a guy named Mario Chocolate Johnson, who claimed to have written a number of tracks with Vanilla Ice, real name Robin Van Winkle, including his hit single Ice Ice Baby. Johnson was being managed by Knight at the time, and when he found out about the contributions his client had made to Ice's music, Knight allegedly paid the young star a visit. As the story goes on, Knight grabs Ice by the ankles and dangles him from the balcony of his hotel room until he agrees to make things right with Johnson. Ultimately, Ice signed over 25% of his hit track's royalties. Ice denied that he was hung from a balcony, but he admitted that Knight had scared him into the deal. I went to my hotel room and Suge was in there with several people, Ice says in the documentary Welcome to Death Row. He let me know he wanted to get some points off the record, Ice Ice Baby. Suge took me out on the balcony. He had me look over the edge, showing me how high I was up there. I needed to wear a diaper that day. I was an investor in Death Row Records with no return on my money. Doing this to a fellow rapper only means Knight was a ruthless guy, and yet he feared Hammer. There was a 4-year period in the 1990s when Death Row Records absolutely dominated the rap genre, with more than 18 million albums sold and profits in the region of $325 million. As Ice suggested, the royalties that Knight shook him down for may have helped launch Death Row, but that wasn't enough. To really get the ball rolling, the big man reportedly went to a man named Michael Harris. The first African American to produce a show on Broadway, Harris was also a notorious drug lord. Known on the streets as Harry O, Harris reportedly gave Knight's fledgling record company a $5 million cash injection and made Death Row a reality. Harris was in prison at the time, serving a 28-year sentence for shooting a man and leaving him to die in the desert. But Harris's wife, Lydia Harris, was able to handle his end of things. Lydia, the inspiration for Empire's Cookie Lion, later ended up sinking Death Row, forcing the label into bankruptcy after she sued for $107 million. All in all, as dangerous as he was, Knight is said to have fear only for MC Hammer. The good thing is, the man has since changed and is now more of a tech guy than I'll take you out kind of man. What a massive turnaround. That said, what's your favorite Hammer song? Let us know in the comment section below. And that's it from us today. Until next time, thank you for watching.